Sir, please begin.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon to one and all present over here. Myself, Dr. Mukesh Laichetiva, working as an assistant professor in the Department of Entomology, College of Agriculture, Parul University. So, welcome to one and all present over here. So, today we are going to start a very informative, productive, and very interesting webinar on the topic current advances for the management of the stored grain pest. So, for the today's program, so we have with us our chairman of the today's webinar, Dr. KG Patel sir. He is Dean and Principal, College of Agriculture, Parul University. And our today's speaker is Ms. Safia Zainab. She is presently working as an assistant professor in the Department of Entomology, Amar Singh PG College, Lakhoti, Bulandshahr in the UP. So I would like to request Dean sir, so please share your valuable thoughts to our audience, sir.
Good morning, everybody. So today is the webinar on current advances for management of stored grain products, stored grain pest. So it is very important seminar because nowadays, as we know that we are facing the problem of the stored grain food. Because every year, throughout the year, we are not getting the fresh food, but we have to rely on the stored food and particular stored grain. So, Dr. Mukesh Laichetiva had told the very right topic in the today's era, and the speaker, that is Dr. Safia Zainab, the assistant professor, PG College, and with the joint effort, this webinar is taking place. Now, as you know that, dear friend, nowadays in the developed country, total 9% damage is due to stored grain pest, and 20% in developing country. Both we can talk about the qualitative and quantitative losses. So, regarding the quantitative losses, almost in the present scenario, 8 to 10%, that is 13 million tons grain losses due to insect pests throughout the world. And it is about 100 million tons grains is was due to failure of the storage facility, and this is happened in all over throughout the world. So, and major role is played by the insect pest and some disease also. So now we can say that there are thousands of these stored grain species are available across the world, and maximum 20,000 species are for the insect pests that can damage the stored grain. So it is very necessary to control this pest, to manage this pest for the better for the facility of the stored grain. Because it is also estimated that 1/3 of the total world production of the grain are damaged by the insects, whether in the field condition or with storage pest. So it is comprising of $100 billion. So it is a very huge amount of losses due to insect pest maybe in the field or in storage pest like that. Now, regarding if we talk about the insect pests are not harmful to the storage, but there is the qualitative loss also, because the grains are very important for our carbohydrate, protein, minerals. So the chemical changes, or there are some feedings due to point of the feeding excreta also released, and some silk also released. So there is the qualitative losses also, and it can hamper the quality of the grain. So it is very important to manage the insect, particularly as we said that majority of the insect pests come from the Coleoptera and Lepidoptera. So Coleoptera pest, they play 60% role to damage the grain in the storage or in field condition, and 10% are the Lepidoptera. So as you know that it is very difficult to manage because some of the insects are both the larvae and adults are damaging to the stored grains, and some only adults. So once the larvae enter in the grain, and it completely damages the grain, so it's very difficult to manage. So there is an integrated approach to manage this storing are necessary. So nowadays everybody are feeling, so actually the villages or urban area, the people are store their grain in the bags or being so they are very vulnerable or susceptible to the insect pests. So it is also necessary there should be remedy, there should be preventive measures. So now in this webinar, each and every parts are going to be discussed by the Satya Jaina. So the College of Agriculture and University has organized this seminar in a very right way. So the students, faculty members, and stakeholders will take benefit of the seminar. So it is my humble request to all the participants that we may interact with Dr. Satya Jaina because she has a very good knowledge. She did a lot of work in storage waste. So you can have a solutions for to manage the storage waste as a whole. So it is my again I congratulate both the persons to organize this webinar, and I congratulate the participants that we can make by interacting this webinar workflow. So thank you very much.
So thank you very much, sir, for igniting the young minds of our audience and briefing of today's webinar in very well manner, because sir is a very renowned scientist of entomologist. So before beginning of Safia Zainab ma'am webinar, seminar topic, so I would like to introduce her in brief. She is currently working as an assistant professor at the Amar Singh PG College, Lakhoti, in the Department of Entomology, and she's also doing an PhD at the Banaras Hindu University, and in very soon she is going to complete her PhD. Also, she has published many more scientific publication in the various national and international publications, and she is also a member of various body or society memberships. So ma'am, I would like to request you, please start your webinar with your presentations. Hello, Safia ma'am. Hello, am I audible, ma'am?
Hello.
Yes, yes, yes.
Am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I'm thankful to Dr. Mukesh for giving me opportunity to keep my talk with you all guys, and I'm also very grateful to Dr. KG Patel, the dean of the institute, the dean of the college, and the head of the department as well, for giving me this opportunity to give a talk to you all. So here we begin the talk we have on current advances for management of stored grain and pest. And already Mukesh sir has given a very humble introduction of mine, so I think I need not present myself anymore. So just let's begin with the presentation. Okay, so when we talk about the stored grain pest, we eventually know that human beings on Earth, we require food and water for our sustenance. Fine. So when it comes to food, so that has to be produced and that has to be preserved. Fine. So in order to do that, there are a lot of extensive works which takes place. So since we know, and as Patel sir also gave a brief introduction regarding the thing, that there is a lot of damage being done, and approximately 20 to 30% of crops is damaged every year. And when we talk about the Indian scenario, the data are more worse. Okay. So considering about the global population, since it's rising at a very high pace, we need to consider to up our production as well as our storage measures. Fine. So as we see that the 70% of the grains produced are stored in villages using traditional structures like earthen pots, gunny bags, or steel drums, or even they use bamboo baskets for preserving them, and which we know eventually is not as helpful to store it for a very long period of time. Fine. And moreover, not just during the storage, the loss of grain starts after the harvesting itself. The crop, when it's transported, and during the processing, and to up till storage and till consumption, that the time till it comes to us, then also the lot of grain loss takes place. And this loss may be due to various factors, which could be biotic or abiotic. When we talk about abiotic factors, that could be your means like rainfall or high temperature, or whatever, which are not under our control, the natural calamities as well, as you can say. And when we talk about biotic factors, then these includes our microbes, these pathogens, the insect pest or the non-insect pest which attack our crops. Coming to the losses due to the insect pest, already Patel sir has given the data which I'll be discussing with you again, that like more than 20,000 species of field as well as storage pests are responsible for destruction of almost 1/3 of world food production. And that's hell lot of a number. Means when we talk about the food production, we know that like every year, as told previously, that 1.5% of increase we are seeing in the population. So we have to increase our production also, and we have to preserve that also. And then we know that 20,000 species are already attacking at field conditions as well as storage conditions to our grains. Okay. So coming to the in Indian context, since we know India is a tropical country. Okay. So we have like high temperatures and high humidity. Not just India, the Southeast Asian countries which we have. So here the damage is much more as compared to those of temperate regions. Like here we have 20 to 30% of damage as compared to those countries which lie in the temperate regions or in colder regions. The damage there which has been estimated is around 5 to 10%. And moreover, India not just being a tropical country, we also lie in the category of developing nation. So the facilities provided to us are not that as advanced as compared to the other regions or countries lying in Europe, or if we talk about US and all. Okay, there's another study which was conducted by World Bank, and it told that around 12 to 16 million tons of food grains is lost due to storage pests, which would otherwise feed 1/3 of world population if prevented. This thing was also pointed out by Patel sir during his inaugural points which you told. And since like this becomes the responsibility of not just the agricultural scientists, but even the at the end of consumer also, to just how to protect, we can protect the grains which we have bought. Okay, because every single grain saved is every single grain produced. Fine. So as mentioned by the sir, that the loss to the grain is not just in the terms of quantity, it's the loss in terms of quality also. Okay, the grains are not just damaged by the insects, but they become unfit for the consumption because of the insect excreta, the webbing, the wings, their exuvate, and all, even the dead part of the insects which are left behind. Because of that, the qualitative aspect of the grains gets damaged, and it's become unfit for the human consumption. So like as we talked about the pests, about the stored grain, so this is a very basic classification which has been done for the stored pest, like into two parts. That's a primary insect pest and secondary insect pest. Before going to the management practices or how to control the insects, stored insect pest, we need to actually know how this would give us a better aspect, a better notion that how can we control them, because we'll be able to know their nature of damage most importantly with this. So these primary insect pests or internal feeders are those insects which feed inside the embryo or inside the grain. The female, it lays its egg, it bores a hole, and with the help of its ovipositor, it deposits the egg inside the grain. Fine. And later on she seals it. In the female insect that seals the point of puncture, and the egg hatches inside the grain, and its various larval stages are also completed inside the grain, and later on it goes into pupation, followed by the adult emergence, and when the adult emerges via the exit hole. Fine. But in case of secondary insect pests or external feeders, these insects are those which feed on the broken grains which have already been damaged by the primary insects. Fine. So there's a list like which insects fall under primary and which insects come under secondary insect pest. This is just for to understand the nature of damage. Okay. The next comes, now we understand which are the pests, what damages they cause. Now we jump towards the storage, the management approaches, how to control these storage pests. So in the past, even our fathers and forefathers across the country, they have used different practice methods to manage these pests. Fine. So like they in villages, still in some parts of the country, still they use preventive measures, like they isolate the old storage bags from the new one, and they try to expose the newly harvested grain, and they try to evaporate as much moisture as they can. Okay, so that it lowers the moisture level in the grain. Still in our houses we use this neem leaves and this tobacco leaves and this salt when we have to store rice or some wheat for like for a good 2-3 months. Still in today's time we use these natural organic products to keep our grains safe. And in the past they also used lime and camphor for paddy in gunny bags. Even today some of the farmers, they use this neem oil for seed treatment of pulse seeds. Even they dip their gunny bags, the rice bags or whatever they store in those gunny bags, they dip in the solution of this neem seed kernel extract, and they try to kill the previous infection if present before refilling the bags again. Fine. Even not just these products, they even use different kind of structures to means kind of insulate them and to prevent their exposure to outer environment. Okay, so they used to make these bins out of mud, steel kind of thing, or some bamboo basket kind of thing to airtight that and to keep it safe for a longer duration of time. Now comes the conventional practices, the one which we are following at present from a quite long time. Fine. So since 1939, we would say, when Paul Muller we discovered the insecticidal properties of DDT. After that, then we have seen the chemical era. There has been so much exploitation of these chemicals for control of insects across the globe. Okay, so these synthetic pesticides have been successful, no doubt, but they had their downside, or they had their cons, the impact on the environment, the residues, and the damage to non-target organisms, and all these things. Fine. Still in warehouses, like government warehouses, we have this from Central Warehouse Corporation, and even we have this Food Corporation of India. These people still, they use this insecticides like this malathion, DDVP, and dentamethrin. They used to treat the gunny bag surfaces and the alleyways, the paths across which they are stored. Okay, so on a weekly basis, means that this is a part of the schedule. They take the preventive measures. They don't wait whether they'll see insect or not. They have a fixed schedule. Every 2 weeks they have to make a spray of malathion. Every 3 weeks they have to spray this dentamethrin along the alleyways, and so on and so forth. The protocol which has been provided to them. The chlorpyrifos for termite treatment in these warehouses, propoxur for cockroaches, and so on, like this. Fine. Besides this, still we have prevalent uses of fumigants like methyl bromide and phosphine in our warehouses, because tons and tons of grains are stored. So in that cases, that becomes a very favorable spot for the insects to grow. The microclimate over there differs from the one outside, because that's a very close structure. Fine. So the insects, they get a very suitable environment in terms of humidity, temperature to reproduce. So in that case, use of methyl bromide and phosphine are used just to kill all the every stages of the insects within the warehouses, and even for the ones which are exported and imported. Although in 1993, after it was discovered that methyl bromide causes damage to the ozone layer of our earth, so this was banned as per the Montreal Protocol, that this has to be phased out, and we have to look for a substitute for methyl bromide for fumigating and preventing our crops, our stored grains. But still there has been no consolidating step towards that. This aluminum phosphide or phosphine is being used, but the problem here lies is like, for treatment with aluminum phosphide, we have to give a waiting period of 7 days. Fine. And in case of methyl bromide, within 24 hours, the complete fumigation. The fumigation completely kills all the insects. And since aluminum phosphide is not ovicidal in its activity, so we have to wait for 7 days in case if some of the eggs are left within the bags or the consignment which we have arrived. So we have to wait for next 3-4 days, so that in case if there any egg is there, it hatches, and then the aluminum phosphide it brings out the kill. So both are effective, but yeah, when we talk about the one which is more effective, it is methyl bromide, no doubt, but it is very dangerous and harmful to the ozone layer. So this has slowly and gradually the government is trying to phase out this, and they have restricted its use to only government institutes and government recognized institutions for carrying out fumigation in India. Next, yeah, as we have discussed that this has been phased out because of the Montreal Protocol of the gases like CFCs and HCH, which cause damage to your ozone layer. Now, we talked about the this conventional practices. We talked even about the traditional practices. Now, what we can do, because we already know the use of chemical insecticides have already done a lot of damage. We see the impact on environment. Okay, there are chemical residues. Then they have resistance of against insects. We have seen, and the population also flares up. Okay, so despite all these things, we have to come up something new, which is effective, which is environmentally sustainable, and which is economical. That is 3 E's. This is what the scientists have proposed, that we have to look for technologies which are effective, which are economical, and which are environmentally sustainable. Okay, so that we can have a higher production also, and we can prevent our crops from being infested by these insects. Okay, so in that context, the first thing, a newer concept which has evolved is of plant volatile organic compounds. So as the name suggests, it's plant, or the origin is plant. Volatile means like the chemical is volatile in nature, means it easily gets evaporated. Okay, so that's what the definition says, that plants may contain organic bioactive compounds that provide odor that is volatile in nature, and hence termed as plant volatile organic compounds, or PVOC. Fine. And what are these compounds? These are basically secondary metabolites, such as terpenoids, phenols, and alkaloids, and many more. And what are the function of these secondary metabolites? Basically, the plant or plant parts which produce these secondary metabolites, they do so in order to prevent themselves from various danger in form of insects or microbial infection. In response of these, they secrete these secondary metabolites like terpenoids, phenols, and alkaloids. So these chemicals, they have different effects. Fine. So they may act as an attractant or repellent. They also influence the growth and development of insects, ecdysis. Okay, even the fertility, they impact their behavior, mating behavior, the adult emergence, and plays an important role in throughout crop protection. Means we can, by using these volatile organic compounds, we can impact from the eggs till adult, because this is providing different options, like even for the growth and development, when we talk about even the fertility, and till adult emergence also. So they are promising alternatives to synthetic chemicals. Now, how we can use this volatile organic compounds, we'll see in further slides. So what the first is, like use of this volatile organic compound as growth and development regulators. Okay, so these may also be called as phytochemicals because they have their origin from plants, so phytochemicals. So these phytochemicals are known to change the physiology and behavior of insect by affecting their growth, development, and metamorphosis of insects, as we discussed in the previous slide. Okay, so what kind of impact they make? Because of these chemicals, what we have observed is there is reduction in the weight of larvae, pupa, and adult. Even the larval period gets prolonged. Okay, the pupal periods are also prolonged. It even doesn't leads them to adult emergence. Okay, so these changes in most of the cases are irreversible. Fine. Because of these extracts, the changes brought about in insect body or its physiology cannot be reversed. So, for example, an aqueous extract of Xanthium stomarium leaf was reported to show toxicity, repellency, inhibition of fecundity, and adult emergence of pests in case of Calosobruchus cainensis. Okay, and another example to this is growth and development inhibition of Calosobruchus maculatus, which is happened due to the application of essential oil extracted from Symbopogon species. Okay, this is the use of essential oil to stop the growth and development of Calosobruchus maculatus. The next, use of plant volatile organic compounds as hormone regulator. They can also be used as to regulate the hormones of the insect, because hormones play a very important role in insects or animals or humans in everybody's growth. So in case of insects, the use of this solasodine inhibited the molting and even induced several morphogenic abnormalities in the larvae of your Tribolium confusum. Then next is extracts of water hyacinth, which also have shown promising result, which contains a juvenile hormone analog, which mimics, we can say, the juvenile hormone is present in insects. The extracts from water hyacinth also contains a hormone which mimics. Okay, and what it does, it changes the reproductive behavior and causes abnormal molting and metamorphosis in the stored grain nest. Okay, so in this case, it is working as hormone regulator. It is changing the activity. Next is oviposition deterrent. Like how, as we see in previous, like it was changing the behavior. Now we see oviposition deterrent. What is oviposition deterrent? It's the chemicals that prevent or simply avoid insects from the process of oviposition. Means the chemicals which force the insects not to lay their eggs. Okay, oviposition is what? Laying of eggs. So they prevent them from laying eggs. So these are called oviposition deterrent. So oviposition deterrents, even they help to reduce infestation. How? Because they are the first line of defense against a pest. When the eggs won't be laid, they won't hatch, they won't, the larva won't turn to pupa, and finally the progeny won't go to the next generation. So this is the first line of defense. If we can prevent the insect from egg laying, this would be the very first line of defense against insect pest management. So in this case, garlic oil has been found promising. Essential oils from eucalyptus and even your Nigella sativa are found to be oviposition deterrents in case of your Calosobruchus maculatus and Zabrotis subfasciatus and various other insects. Just few examples I have mentioned here. But these have shown very promising results and mortality rate is relatively high. Now, these can even act as a repellent activity. Fine. So what are these repellents? Repellents are those chemicals that protect stored grains, plants, or other products from insect damage by making the grains unattractive, offensive, or unpalatable. Means insect doesn't like that. It just repels off. It moves away from that. Okay. So those are insect repellents. So like compounds such as germacrol, fulegol, and alpha-terpineol isolated from Baccharis salicifolia and isolated from curcuma longa, your turmeric. This curcuma longa is turmeric. Are potent repellents against Tribolium castaneum. Okay, so various other. Here I have just mentioned 2 or 3 examples, but in most of the cases, these have been found with promising results. Now they also act as anti-feeding. Okay, so the chemical substances which we derive in these from plants, they can even disrupt the feeding behavior of the insects. Okay, so when we treat the grain surface or the bags in which the grains are present with these kind of chemicals, so they induce an anti-feeding behavior in the insects. So what actually happens? The like azadirachtin, it has this deleterious effect, and even the neem seed extracts, okay, induces anti-feeding activity in various pests. it even your plant volatile organic compounds even acts as ovicidal in nature. Okay, so what's ovicidal means? Those substances which have the potential to kill eggs. Okay, so that would be called as ovicidal, that can kill eggs. So in this case, we have find flavonoids isolated from calotropis, which provide 100% progeny suppression, means they kill all the eggs. In this case, when it's talking about a particular experiment which has been conducted. Okay, so in this case, when the flavonoids isolated from calotropis was used, okay, on the eggs of your Callosobruchus chinensis, that provided 100% progeny suppression. So this is also a good option. The next is like essential oils extracted from mentha. Mentha is the mint we use. The mentha, cinnamomum is the cinnamon, and various other plant origins which have ovicidal activity on the eggs of Tribolium castanea. This plant volatile even has chemosterilant activity. Okay, what is a chemosterilant? These are those substances that deprive insects of their ability to reproduce. Okay, so what chemosterilants do? They just snatch away the ability of insects to reproduce, and in most of the cases, this sterility is irreversible, means this cannot be reversed. Once an insect becomes a sterile, it cannot be re-induced, or it can go back to its original state. So like compounds, certain compounds like your acerone 137 trimethyl xanthine used against Callosobruchus chinensis, they have shown promising results because causing this sterility in this insect. Your plant volatile compounds also, they impact the behavioral, means they induce behavioral disturbance in the stored grain pest. So behavioral changes are also induced by these, which can either stimulate or reduce insect mobility. So by insect mobility here means like the insect can become lethargic. Okay, it will lie at one place, it will not show much of the movement because of some other physiological changes inside its body. So behavioral disturbances also observed because of these chemicals. The essential oils of clove and cinnamon, they have effect their locomotion. Even some essential oils enzymes on insects nervous system. So because of impact on its nervous system, it's showing some behavioral disturbances like less mobility, okay, and even in problem in respiratory processes. So these are some of the effects of plant volatile organic compounds on stored grain insect pest. The next approach which we use besides plant volatile organic compounds is use of pheromonal approach. Okay, now what are pheromones? Pheromones are ectohormones released either by male or female partners to change each other's behavior. Now here by ectohormones, what we mean? Ectohormones means those hormones which are released in the outside environment. Okay, and because of these, they manipulate or they change each other's behavior, the male or female. So what we have done is we are now producing it commercially, okay, to manage these pests. At present, around 20 species pheromones have been produced for 20 species of stored grain pests as of now. So pheromones for Plodia interpunctella and Tribolium castaneum and Trogoderma variable are used frequently to manage their population. Now, what the thing which important here is the proper installation of these pheromones. Okay, and where have to be these installed? Because when we store grains in granaries or these warehouses, so we have these alleyways, the paths between the two stalks and around the wall. Because when we install these, we don't lay these bags on the walls, we leave a distance and we for easy movement of air throughout the warehouses. Fine. So these traps have to be laid to be hanged on the wall or most importantly, they are laid inside the dunnage. What is dunnage? Dunnage are those wooden blocks, okay, on which these gunny bags are kept in warehouses, just in order to avoid the contact of these bags with the ground directly, and to promote aeration, so that there is constant movement of air across the bags and it is not lying on the ground. Just to prevent the direct contact with the ground, we keep these bags on wooden carrots, which are called as dunnage. Okay, so on even in dunnage, these sticky traps are placed and around the bags, so that the insect, after smelling those, it can crawl out and go, and finally it will bring out the kill. Now, what the latest which are being used nowadays, or not commercially we could say, but like yes, is the use of nanotechnology for stored grain pest management. Fine. So over the years, since like we have been awareness has been regarding the health and the impact of insecticides or pesticides on a broader term, if we say, we have seen like the impact on the life of people, the plant, and the soil biome or the water bodies. So people have become more aware, and they want some other technology or some option apart from the conventional one which were being used. So here comes this nanotechnology. Now, what is nanotechnology? Any technology which has been developed, means anything which deals with the size, with the order of 10 to the power minus 9, okay, meters. So that comes under nanotechnology. So what they have done is, they have used these nanoparticles. These particles are very small in size, okay, and because of their smaller size, they readily get absorbed in the cuticle lipids. Okay, so this lipids, the insects, they secrete various type of lipids on their body surface just to avoid desiccation. What is desiccation? To prevent the evaporation of water from their bodies for their sustenance. Okay, so this waxy layer, it because it is lipophilic, okay, so lipophobic. So what happens is, most of the chemicals which are water soluble, they don't penetrate the insect surface. But in this case, because of this physiosorption, this causes physical damage in physical ways, and it brings about the kill. Now, what are the types of nano formulations being used? So there are various, like silver nanoparticles, like your silver nitrate. We have nano silica, like diatomaceous earth. While previously also we used to use this diatomaceous earth for management of stored grain pest. Now what they have done is, they have clubbed two technologies using of diatomaceous earth with the nanoparticles. Now what is diatomaceous earth? Diatomaceous earth are the microscopic fossilized plants found in the inside the water or ocean. Okay, in the bed of oceans, we found these diatomaceous earth. These are the fossilized plants. Okay, and these are mainly made up of silica. Fine. So what they have done is, and this silica, the peculiar property which it has is that it has very sharp edges. Fine. So what it does is, these edges, they bring about cut on the insect body. Fine. And because of these cuts on the insect surface, it brings about dehydration, the loss of moisture, and eventually it brings out the kill. And okay, so what they have done is, use of this, because the smaller the size of your this diatomaceous earth, it will be more dangerous for the insects. So when we use it in the size of nanoparticle, this is very lethal for the insect. Similarly, we have synthetic silica, with the one diatomaceous earth itself is made up of silica, but we have synthesized artificially also silica. Okay, and then zinc oxide or copper oxide, these all metals are used as nanoparticles for making formulations and used as insecticides. Now, apart from these, there are also other control measures, like we have biological control, the traditional IPM practices which we used to carry out over the years, but they are still effective. So some of them, like biological control, the use of braconid species or trichogramma to control the insect, because most of the stored grain insects which we have, which impact our crop, belong to the two insect orders, namely your Coleoptera and Lepidoptera. And in that also, of all the insects which affect the your grains, 60% of the pests belong to the order Coleoptera and 10% belong to Lepidoptera. Okay, so both this trichogramma and braconid comes in handy for management of these. Now, next comes this microbial control, this Bacillus thuringiensis, because when we discussed about this in the previous point, that lepidopteran insects also, their larval stages are damaging. So this Bacillus thuringiensis, this is excellent in controlling Lepidopterus pest, because they bring out the kill through through damaging their gut lining. Okay, so solutions of Bacillus thuringiensis is also sprayed on the surface, top surface of the grains. Okay, next is use of insect growth, various insect growth regulators like methoprene, hydroprene even. So like they prevent pupation, specifically in case of Tribolium castaneum, they prevent pupation. Okay, another form of control measure is use of ionizing radiation. So this is a very environmental friendly option, because this works is like the radiation are released in a closed environment, the place where these grains are stored. So what we do is, with the help of electricity using cobalt-60, ionizing radiations are released, and these radiations bring out the kill in almost all the stages of the insect. So in order to prevent the in order to manage the insects. Okay, so these, like, besides what we discussed previously with your plant volatile organic compounds and the use of nanoparticles, these we have been using this in the past still, but the ones which we discussed previously, they are being now used more. Besides that, we also are now using nano silica, the one which we discussed in the previous. Let me show you. Yeah, this nano silica, like diatomaceous earth. Let me just give you a brief discussion. What's the mode of action? What happens is, with the help of this nanotechnology, what we do is we encapsulate the toxicant, whatever insecticide, or say example, if it's chlorpyrifos, or even some plant volatile active which we want to use to bring about the kill in the insect. So what we do, these things in very minute quantities, they get encapsulated with the help of these nanoparticles. They act as kind of carrier. Okay, and when these nanoparticles, they come in contact with the insect surface, what it does is, because of the abrasion, okay, so they get there's a force called as van der Waals forces. I guess we have studied this long back in class, some 11th or 12th. So what this van der Waals forces is, when two objects, they come in very close proximity, means when they come very close, these forces, they start acting, and it brings about a force of attraction. Van der Waals forces means force of attraction, but they are very weak forces of attraction. So am I audible?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So okay, so when this your nanoparticles, when they come in contact with the insect surface, what they do is, because of the abrasion, they make lots of cut on insect bodies, and they get inside the insect body, and as it went inside, and on getting the suitable pH, these encapsulations, they break, and the toxic material which they carry, it's released in the insect body, and thus bringing out the kill. So what is this? So the quantity of insecticide or the toxic material required in case of nano formulations is very small. In general,
जो लिंक है उसके ऊपर उसके डिटेल्स लिख के रिकमेंड कर देंगे। तो
Hello.
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 Ma'am, you are audible. Wait a minute.
Okay, no, actually there was some discussion.
Yes. I'm.
I thought there was some issue. Fine. So these get absorbed in the insect body, and these capsules, these nano particles, they get released in the insect body, and they bring about the kill. So what is the main benefit is that like we are using a very small quantity of insecticide, and they are very target based, like they are not being used in larger quantities and will damage the non-target pests. Okay, so this is how most of the nano formulations work. Even your this zinc oxide or copper oxide itself, because of its metal particles, they have these edges, and when we reduce this to the size of on the order of 10 to the power minus 9 meters, in such a small size, what it actually do is it increases the surface area. An object like say for example, if we have an apple and it's quite big enough, but when we cut it into small pieces, so it's basically what we are doing is we are increasing its surface area. So as the number of pieces increase, the total surface area of that particular fruit is increasing. So that is the same thing, same technology or same concept we apply in case of nano formulation. So when we reduce the size of these metal particles, or when we say about this nano silica thing, so what we actually are doing is we are reducing its size, but we are increasing its surface area. Okay, so that is how the concept of nano formulations work. And besides this, means like we even use this aluminum oxides and copper oxides and all these in tandem, not just these nanoparticles as metal, but in tandem with your plant volatiles as well, and even your synthetic insecticides also have been tested against insects. Okay. And this will, like we already discussed, what are the other control measures which we have been following over the years under our IPM module, which we follow to control. Besides the preventive measures which we discussed earlier, that like we have to maintain a proper hygiene, and we should not use old gunny bags until unless they have been cleaned or disinfected properly before filling the new grains, and so on and so forth. So preventive measures, and then upon seeing the symptoms, using of these particular methods to bring about the control in stored grain pest. So this is all I think we it could be the proposed methodologies, or what we can say as of now, which are being advanced one used, and let's see what further future holds for control. So that's all from my end for this presentation, and in case if anyone has any doubts or anyone to ask anything, they are most welcome.
So first of all, thank you very much, ma'am, for providing a very informative knowledge to our audience, and you have covered all the things from the conventional pesticides to the botanicals, microbial pesticides, or the different pesticides, and using some ionizing radiations, and also you have very well described about the nanotechnologies. That is the recent research that is going on in every field that is using, and how we can use in the management of the stored grain pest. It is very good to hear all the information regarding the stored grain pest. So as we can say, in the management of the stored grain pest, it is a very important that we should have to be a very that whatever we are using to manage stored grain pest, we have to be use the very least residual pesticides or the biopesticides, so that
Exactly.
could not be affect to because ultimately we are the
Direct consumers.
direct
Yeah.
consumers. So that's why we have to take care of all those things. And thank you very much, ma'am, for this session. And if the any
Thank you
Yes.
for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to have a talk with you and with your students. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Before ending our session, so today I would like to do a word of thanks. So first of all, thank you very much to our respected dean sir for providing their valuable time. And also I would like to thanks to our Parul University for providing this platform to share the valuable thoughts, our thoughts of our today's speakers to our students and other audience. And also I would like to thanks to all the students who has participated in this webinars. So thank you very much. Without the participation of you, it's can't be very useful or useful. So thank you very much once again, and thank you, ma'am. So by this word, I would like to say the end of today's webinar session. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.